Hey there, it's Dr. Sarah here. Today, on the She Found Motherhood podcast, I have the absolute pleasure of talking with Valerie Groysman. Valerie's a registered social worker and a child and family therapist whose own journey with infant and toddler sleep led her to build her own business, finding sleep solutions for families based on science, connection, and intuition. Valerie shares her top 5 sleep tips on the podcast today. Head to our show notes below to find out more about the offerings that Valerie has and where you can find her on social media and online. We'll get into the podcast right after this short message. Welcome to the She Found Motherhood podcast. We are doctors Sarah and Alicia, maternity physicians and moms who have been through it all. We want to empower you with knowledge so you can have the best pregnancy, birth, and postpartum experience you can.
She Found Health and She Found Motherhood is meant for general medical information only. The content of this podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. This information does not apply to every situation. If you have questions or if you've received different advice, please contact your healthcare provider. Always seek the advice of your physician or another qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. The views expressed by She Found Health and She Found Motherhood and our guests are not representative of any of the institutions with which we are affiliated. Some of our podcast episodes are sponsored so that we can keep getting great info out there to you, our listeners. We only partner with companies that we truly believe in. Some of our links and suggestions may be affiliates, and we would appreciate you using them to help fund this important work. Now let's get to it.
Welcome to the She Found Motherhood podcast. I'm so excited to have you here, Valerie.
I'm really happy to be here.
Awesome. I thought we would just get started by you telling us a little bit about yourself and how you got into the world of infant sleep and what kind of training you've gotten over the years.
I'm Valerie Groysman. I'm the founder of Talkin Sleep. We provide sleep solutions based on biology and family values. We offer alternatives to more traditional sleep training and crying it out methods.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a registered social worker with a master's in social work. Specialized from University of Toronto, where I specialized in child and family therapy, and more specifically, just by coincidence, by something that actually went terribly wrong. I had the supervisor who specialized in kids and families 0 to 6 years old that I never chose in the first place. But that was the earliest time. This was about 8 years now, I think, ago. But that was the first time that I guess the universe redirected me to where I should be. Because 8 years later, that's all I'm doing. And I'm passionate about it.
Yeah.
Is with babies and very young children, so babies and toddlers. I was never really interested in baby sleep. I was more into their mental health, so social, emotional development and their behavior, and more specifically, relationships just always excited me. And in the early years, you can really see relationships unfold. So then fast forward several years into my practice as a social worker and psychotherapist specialized in this group. I had my own little one 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I struggled with his sleep so much, and just with all the information that I was receiving just around sleep training and crying it out methods, and they were just not fitting in with what I learned in my training. And also just a lot of the stuff that I'm trying to implement just didn't feel right. And in the fog of sleep deprivation, it felt like there was no other solutions, no other options, but it was just feeling so conflicted.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So fast forward, I really struggled with this sleep for many months, doing things, feeling bad about them, just feeling like a complete failure as a new mother, and just lost and confused. I finally found someone who created a certification in baby-led sleep, which is basically an alternative to sleep for families, which is like a middle ground. It's a sleep without sleep training approach where we focus on changing the things that we can change to get the most sleep, but we aren't necessarily focused on teaching or training sleep, but more figuring out the root cause of why baby is not sleeping and what are the things in our control that we can tweak to get parents more sleep. So I put a lot of value on both the baby's needs and the parents' needs, which are equally important.
Mm-hmm.
Need the rest. And we want to make sure that every parent wants to do what they feel is best for their baby. So this is a way of incorporating my social work background and specialty in infant and child mental health with baby sleep. And that's what I do now is help new families support their babies with using an alternative to the more traditional methods.
Oh, that's great. I wish you had been around when my first was born because we struggled with sleep. And you're right. You feel like there's two extreme. And I'm really glad to hear that we're seeing a shift towards a sort of more balanced approach.
Yes, because I think both extremes are harmful in their own ways. But when we kind of try to move it to the middle and also focus on kind of the cause of the sleep issue, because specifically for 0 to 6, we would get referrals if there is challenges with sleep, feeding, or toileting, like the mental health pieces. Uh,
Mhm.
so sleep is often a reflection of a health condition or something else going on in the environment. And that gets really missed when we're just focused on just getting the baby to not to kind of sleep at all costs almost.
Mhm.
Uh, But parents just get to this place where they're so sleep deprived that anybody that's will say that they have a solution for it,
Yeah.
uh, go for it.
Yeah, it's a really vulnerable group, new parents,
Yes.
right?
Yes, and that's the other thing is I feel it's such a vulnerable group, new parents and new babies. So I part of my thing that really drove me to get into it. Here I am with all this professional knowledge.
Yeah.
And here's this field where there's so many people that are part of it that don't necessarily have the training to work with vulnerable populations that are their best to help, but are potentially causing a lot of harm to families. So I felt like I have to and bring in my expertise and kind of that professional background because I think it's what makes me be able to really get to the root and really help families in an individualized way. So I don't think there is a one size fits all for all families. Each family is different. Each baby is different. What works for one does not work for other. And that's one of the issue with sleep techniques out there is there one size fits all and just assuming that everybody is the same thing. But
Mhm.
he's unique. Even my own, I just had my second baby. He's completely different than my first, which again didn't reminded me. I'm using different sleep strategies with him than I did with my first, even once I figured out how to support him. But I just know with my first for a fact, if I tried the crying methods, it would have turned out pretty badly. Whereas with my current baby, I'm not planning on trying the crying methods because I know there is an alternative that's just as effective. But I know that for him, if I tried it, it wouldn't have been. I think he probably would have it, but
Yeah.
just forward. But I think it's important for families to know that there is an alternative. Because me, when I was a first time mom, I just thought there's no other thing you could do. All my friends were doing it.
Mhm.
Information out there on Google, on YouTube, everywhere. It's all about sleep training, how to sleep train. It almost feels like a rite of passage. Like everybody has to do it. And all the babies. Turns out it's not true.
Yeah. Yeah. I couldn't agree more. And I'm really glad there's people out there like you who have the knowledge and the expertise around the neurodevelopment and the importance of attachment that can support parents. So I think today we're going to talk about some of your top tips for new parents around infant sleep. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. And like you said, the first year, particularly the first few years, really, but and ongoing, really, but the first year is a window of opportunity. If there was a relationship, both relationship with the parents and also learning about things relate to each other in the world. So it's the really important time to connect and bond and get to know your baby. That really sets the foundation for later, which is another reason. And sleep is one of those main things that we do a lot of with the babies in the first year. It can be a source of connection and a source of relationship and a source of kind of peacefulness and quality time, or it can be a source of stress and a source of contention and a source of conflict. And that sets the tone to our relationship going forward. So I think it's really important to, yeah. So I'm going to give you 5 tips
Yeah.
are concerned with both getting the most sleep, but also thinking about the bigger impact on your baby and long term solutions.
Awesome. I can't wait.
Yeah. So the first one that's most important is that, and that I always say is getting to know your baby. So babies will, when you don't know babies yet, and I think a lot of us come into nowadays, especially in North America and similar Western countries, we come into parenthood without really knowing babies very much. So it seems like all their cries sound the same. It seems like they do the exact same thing and all the babies are the same. But once you get to know them, you will see that they have individual cues and sleepy cues and they behave differently when they are getting tired versus when they're hungry versus when they want to play. So really getting to know your baby, and some of it is trial and error, just listening to them, looking at them, sometimes feeling like a complete failure because they're listening and they're crying and you're trying all these things that they're just not responding. But that's experience too. That's very valuable because your baby is telling you keep trying. They're not telling you you're failing and you need to give up, which your brain might be, but they're telling you, let me try again to explain to you what I'm trying to get. So really getting to know them, because learning their sleep behavior will help you put them to sleep on time. Sometimes we put them to sleep too late or too early because Either we're so worried about them becoming overtired that we're just constantly putting them to sleep. And then they become undertired, which looks the same at night with a lot of wakes as overtired, which is going too long without sleep. So some examples of sleepy cues. One that's really very common that I see that's often overlooked is avoiding eye contact. So sometimes parents will think, oh, my baby is avoiding eye contact. They need something more exciting to do. But that's your baby's way of saying, I actually need to wind things down and I'm ready to relax and go to sleep. Another really common one is their eyebrows might get a little bit more red or their face is just not as bright as it looks when they're fully energized. Those might be earlier cues. If they're already crying, it's often them saying, I'm really tired and I might need more help to go to sleep than I might have earlier. Give yourself a chance to try things and just observe your baby. I do have a blog post that we can link that goes more details about sleepy cues, early ones and late ones.
That would
But
be great.
what I'd say is watch your baby and make decisions based on your knowledge of your individual baby because every baby is different.
Yeah, that's great advice. And I also really like how you said you're not failing. And I think new parents, we really need to build compassion within ourselves because it's hard and we can be really hard on ourselves, right? And I was, and that can lead to perinatal mental health, anxiety, and depression when we feel like we're failing our baby. So just normalizing that babies cry and it's going to take you some time to get to know your baby and just it's time and attention and noticing those small details. So that would be great. And linking that so you can, because I'm sure every baby has its own cues for sleep, right?
Every baby is different. Yes, absolutely. And also about the compassion piece. In order to be able to be compassionate with your baby, you oftentimes need to be able to be compassionate first. So you're doing it for both of you. And the more compassionate that you are towards yourself, the easier it will be to have that empathy and have things be more easygoing and to learn when things don't work out. Everybody's going through it, whether we're professionals or not professionals or first or second or third baby. I still sometimes experience it with this baby, even with all my knowledge.
Mhm.
Almost feel like I need to go rewatch my tips for other parents. So there's never too many reminders to be compassionate to ourselves because I think we tend to think but nobody knows what they're doing. We're all trying to figure it out.
Exactly. Exactly. Okay, that's great. What's your next tip, Valerie?
The next one is connection, and it builds up on the other one. Connection is key. Feeling connected to your baby before sleep will help them go to sleep faster and stay asleep longer because your baby is learning about the world. They don't know yet what to expect. So they're really asking over and over in different ways how the relationships work. Who is going to keep me safe? What's going to happen? Um, next in my world. And their world is largely unpredictable because they're brand new around here. They're orienting them. So that's often why in the first 3 to 4 months, a lot of babies want to sleep just on mom or the birthing person and will not let you set them down. And oftentimes parents think that they're doing something wrong and their baby refuses to sleep off of them because they're doing something wrong. When in reality, that's just their kind of next step. First, they were inside the belly, and next, the smoothest transition, if you really think about it, is on you. Uh, yeah, it's the closest place to get their food, is the closest place to get their comfort, is the closest place to get to the person who's in charge of keeping them. So providing that closeness, first of all, will not spoil your baby and will not set them up for bad anything, but it will help you bond. It will help you with feeding. It will help with regulating even their body temperature. It reduces the amount of crying. It just has so many benefits for both, and it will help you connect and learn their cues. Because if you're spending more time with them, it more opportunities to get to know each other.
Mhm.
Or what sleep off of you better later.
I know, it's so true, and it's such a great tip when people are like, My newborn won't lie down in a bassinet by itself," and I'm like, "Of course not, it was just inside of you." Like, it doesn't and it takes so long. I think you would know better than I, but I think it's at least 18 months almost until they realize that they're not part of you.
Absolutely. Yeah. It takes 18 months indeed to realize that it gets internalized in their brains that even if they cannot feel you and see you through their five senses, that you still continue to exist. It finalizes in 18 months. So knowledge that you still exist and they can still access you and they have some power over getting to you. It finalizes around 18 months, but it's still a process to become confident that they can be away from you for longer periods of time and that you will always return. That's one of the big milestones of toddlerhood, is getting that security and that confidence that you will return after you separate.
Mhm. It's so fascinating.
It is.
Yeah. Okay. That is a beautiful tip. I love that connection and just being close to your baby. Hey, Sarah, do you remember all of those questions you had as a new mom? What car seat should I buy? How do I start solids with my baby? Do I cloth diaper or use disposables? How do I care for my newborn skin? And what kind of birth control should I use postpartum? I sure do. I know for me, one of my hugest supports postpartum was my network of mom friends who had been through it themselves or were going through it with me. The sleep deprivation, the breastfeeding challenges, the baby blues, you name it. Agree. The support of a community that you know and trust and has been through the challenges of postpartum or is going through them with you is so important. That's why we created the nesting community. I'm so excited to build this community. Alicia, why don't you tell our listeners what it's all about? I would love to. We're teaming up with Dr. Pip from Making Mama Well to build the nesting community to help you prepare for the fourth trimester and beyond. Are you wanting more information on how to prepare? Feeling anxious about all the different options and what to choose? Are you looking for a group of like-minded mamas for support and to lean on each other during this challenging but amazing season of your life? We'll be having monthly guest experts covering topics from baby wearing to breastfeeding challenges, from postpartum contraception to return to work planning. So come on over and join us at www.shefoundhealth.ca. We can't wait to see you in the nesting community. Check out the link in our show notes below. What do you want to share next?
The third tip is your baby. I don't know if you can hear my baby. He was a little bit upset.
Oh,
Yeah. Always the dilemma between stepping in and giving.
yeah. Yeah, you do what you need to do.
Okay, I'll let you know if I need to step away.
Yeah. Please do let me know.
The third tip is, can you hear it actually or no?
No, I can't hear him.
No, okay. You're not crying anymore. We'll keep going. Okay. Number three, there are things that your baby does in their sleep, particularly common in the first year, that actually don't mean that they're awake. Very commonly, especially in families that bed share or co-sleep or have baby sleep very close to them, they might be thinking the baby is awake a lot more than they're actually awake because they spend a lot more time in active sleep, which during which time they're sleeping, but they're doing things that are going to make you think they're not sleeping. So your baby can be completely asleep and at the same time rolling, cruising around, babbling, chatting, moaning, even opening and closing their eyes, pumping their arms and legs, and even fussing and brief cries happen while they're completely asleep. They're usually very short, like a few under 30 seconds for sure. And parents describe the cries going from 0 to 100 in a matter of a second and ending just as fast. When it's a cry in sleep, when it's a cry for help, come and help me out with something, it usually escalates if you wait a minute or something, or you just listen or wait a few minutes. So you will tell the difference once you have experience listening, which goes to my other two tips, which is it's really important to listen to what their cry sounds like because every cry is different. But you will only find that out if you spend some time listening and try to kind of decipher what they're telling you.
I know it's so important for parents to know this. Alicia and I care for tons of young families, and we have so many new parents coming in and being like, "My baby's so loud at night. Is something wrong?" And I'm like, "No, generally not."
Exactly. Yeah. And the cry when something's wrong also sounds different. So I think it's just, at first, it's just about getting experience and then you get more confident about it. It's never wrong to respond to your baby. It's never wrong to help them out. And you want to take this opportunity to listen and give yourself some grace too. Sometimes you just need a few breaths to, wake up yourself or I don't know, to come from wherever you are, just to orient yourself and figure out what is it that they might be asking you.
Yeah,
So,
totally. That's it's such great advice. So knowing that they're loud sleepers and also giving yourself that grace to be like, are they actually still asleep? You don't have to jump at their, which we're all attuned to do, especially if it's your first time. Babies can be really scary.
in our endeavor to be these like very responsive parents and do all the right things, and depending on what you're reading and whose advice you're following, you might feel like your baby should not cry at all, but that's also not necessarily helpful because crying also has a very important function, and it's about just empathetically and compassionately being there with them and helping them tell you what it is that they need.
Yeah.
And early on, that's their only way is crying, smiling,
That's how they communicate, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great tip.
Yeah. So the next one, which is one that I wish that somebody told me because I had so much guilt and just anxiety over doing that the first time with my baby, but that it's okay to help your baby get back to sleep. If they woke up from a nap and they're really upset and you can tell that they're still tired, you're not undermining their ability to extend their naps by helping them back to sleep. You're actually helping them extend the nap and potentially preventing them from becoming overtired. So it is never wrong to help your baby out. It's okay to extend their naps. Some ways are, for example, something that I'm doing right now. My baby is 4 months, working between things. He's settling on a pattern in his sleep, but I know it's still going to change. So if he wakes up from his nap and he's upset, and I know that he still needs to sleep more. And let's say I'm in the middle of something, or I'm hungry. I might not try to settle him back in his for us, he sleeps in a sidecar. I might not try to settle him back in his crib because it's more convenient for me to do something else. So I'll put him in the carrier. He goes back to sleep there. I can finish eating or drinking my coffee or whatever it is, and he can finish his nap. If you're trying to settle them, they're really upset. They won't settle back in the crib or wherever they're sleeping in a bassinet. You can also try a stroller ride. You can try holding them and just watching some TV or relaxing yourself or some other ways. But extending their naps is a good thing. It's not going to ruin their sleep.
And oftentimes that's just such an important message for parents to hear because like you said, there's so much out there and we tend to be really afraid of creating bad habits. I'm doing quote unquote here, but it's so essential to their brain development and especially when they're so little, like they just need sleep and they need your support in getting it.
Yes. And it's just so much more important for them to get the sleep, even if it means you're helping them. And then it's a good thing. We're there to help them. We want to help them. Just understanding that there's no such thing as bad habits. They can't even tell patterns in the world, even until around 4 months. They're not even starting to even notice that things are connected.
Mhm.
So, and it's a really special time, especially in the first few months, to bond and to be together. And they're so sweet in their sleep. So, might as
I know. They get me every time.
yeah. I think we also think we can cause a lot more kind of damage than I'm doing air quotes right now, but the damaging things are things we never intended or didn't realize were just damaging. But it's also not that easy to damage, I think, our kids as we think. They really just want our us
Mhm.
and however we are, just trying to make it work and provide that comfort and connection.
Absolutely. I know it's such an important message. We need to keep getting out there. So thank you for saying that. Okay. And I think we're on to your last tip. Is that right?
Yeah. Yes. So my number one tip, and it's actually not something that parents want to hear, no, which is there is no such thing as one magical sleep answer that will get every parent and baby sleep. There is just no such thing, even within the same family. Um, so it's really important to consider yourself, your individual baby, your circumstances, your baby's age, what's important to you as a parent when you're making any decisions around how you want to support their sleep.
I know. I always get questions about how do I get my baby to transition to the crib? And I'm like, okay, where do we start? It's so complex. Yeah. And I think it's such
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's not just okay, put them in the crib. I need to know who's your baby, what are they like, what is what's been their experience with the crib so far, what's motivating you in the first place
yeah.
in the crib, what are you trying to get out of it? What are your reasonings? Because sometimes we think that there's just this one way to get to what we need, but there's more than one way to get to our goal. Always. There's no such thing as just one way to do
Yeah.
something.
And it's so important, I think, and the more Alicia and I have been doing this work and building this community and learning about how important it is to learn about things like breastfeeding and infant sleep while you're pregnant so that you can have these conversations while you're not really sleep deprived with your partner about, okay, what are our beliefs as a family around sleep and what are my sleep needs and my priorities, right? Because somebody might be okay, like, I'm happy to wake up every 2 to 3 hours, whereas somebody else might be like, you know what, I really need a bigger chunk of sleep. So how are we going to prioritize this as a family?
Exactly. Yeah. So even our needs as the parent is I have a friend that functions wonderfully on 4 hours of sleep. I know for myself, if I don't get the sleep, the 8 or even 9 hours, that
Mhm.
I'm a complete mess. So I had to work a lot on shifting my mindset first, also around just when I will sleep and how often my sleep will be disrupted, because with newborns, it's just inevitably going to be disrupted. They need to eat. And oh, the other thing is that sleep is very much connected with feeding. They might be a wonderful sleeper, but they need to eat. And I think just preparing to share responsibilities, and there are things we can prepare in advance if we know that we do need that sleep and we don't function, that don't involve necessarily doing anything that involves, if you're uncomfortable, like leaving our babies to cry, for example, because that's something that we're not willing to negotiate on.
Mm.
There's always, yeah, like I said, more than one way. And so really important. Yeah. One of the number one thing that people tell me that they wish they did when they were pregnant is learn more about normal infant sleep. Because a lot of the things that babies are doing are actually normal, but parents think that there is a problem because they're hearing all of these unrealistic expectations out there. So chunk of my work with parents is actually just empowering you with information about normal things, what to expect,
Mhm.
reminding you that they're doing a really good job and that your baby is doing what they're doing a really good job at being a baby.
Yeah.
And then that helps you to set realistic expectations, which helps us not failure. Because I think feeling like a failure comes from having really wildly unrealistic expectations about what we should be doing or the baby should be doing or both. Um, and in reality, it's just not aligned with biology or what we believe is important for us, for our family.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, I couldn't have said it better myself. And that's the whole reason, Alicia, and I started this work was because we see so many people come in with disappointment around their breastfeeding journey or their birth story or their postpartum journey because they had these completely and no fault of their own, these unrealistic expectations because of some of the misinformation that's out there.
So much misinformation. Yeah. And just the expectation specific with also with sleep, also with breastfeeding, there is a history to it, of course. There's a reason why we're all in this.
Yeah.
And they are related actually. Both they are related to each other because as
Yeah.
more alternatives to sleep training, just to breastfeeding were introduced. Sleep training kind of goes together as a solution.
Mm.
And just perpetuated all these myths. And now we're moving back to encouraging parents to breastfeed. But for example, in the US, they're strongly discouraged from bed sharing or co-sleeping, which in my opinion is just, we put the two together because oftentimes breastfeeding requires to be close to baby
Mhm.
for her to get sleep. So all this, I can talk about this all day. I won't get into it right now, but there is a history to it, of course. And I think it's hard to get good information again, because it's so saturated with people trying to help who don't necessarily have the background other than just reading this book or repeating like a plan that they were certified in. And also with sleep specifically, sleep consultants can be certified by anyone. I like to say, even your plumber could wake up tomorrow morning and decide to be a sleep consultant uh, and offer sleep support to families, which is something that completely breaks my heart. And is another reason why I'm trying to do this work is that anybody can call themselves the certified sleep consultant. It doesn't mean anything about their qualifications. It's not a regulated field, even though they're working with such a vulnerable population. So it's really important to do your research and make sure that the person you're selecting to help you is somebody that you truly feel can help. Sadly, I get families after really negative experiences, just from people who don't understand the full impact of some of the recommendations that they're making on particular babies. But I think it's if that's you, if you're listening and you're like, I feel really bad about how I handled my first baby's sleep. It's also really important to remember that we make the best choice based on information and resources that we have at the time. And one decision is not going to make or break your family. And just the fact that you're sitting there thinking, how can I do it differently next time? That's already cause for celebration and means that you're a great, great parent that's trying their best.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's such an important message to get out there. And I think just the more we understand about the importance of I don't necessarily want to say credentials, but just like the background and the training and the expertise of the people that we're turning to for our advice, the more positive I think your experience will be.
It's more likely, yes. Of course, in every profession, there's people going to be exceptional, people maybe won't be exceptional or are not the right fit for a certain family. But definitely backgrounds and credentials. I think specifically with sleep, it's so much more complex than just walking every 10 minutes to a crying baby, because there might be a reason. There not might be. There is the reason why they're crying.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if that person isn't qualified to help you figure out that reason, they're just going to keep telling you, yeah, just keep going in every 10 minutes. Because
Yes.
that's of their training. Also, professionals tend to have training around kind of scope of practice and what is my area of expertise and qualification and where I refer. So I tend to actually refer a lot to other specialists, particularly if I see any flags or underlying health related reasons why baby is waking. So something that I place a lot of importance on is actually not giving you advice on things that I don't know, which is not necessarily something that someone who doesn't have that professional background might do.
Yeah. Oh, that's such great advice. Valerie, it's been a total pleasure talking to you.
For me too. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah, no, it's great. So, for our listeners who want to know where to find you, both on social media as well as in the virtual or probably not much in person world these days, where can they find you and what sort of services do you offer?
Yeah, I can be found on my website, which is www.talkinsleep.com. It's talking without the G.
Yeah.
Because we get into personal conversation. And right now, I'm offering a baby sleep course that has components of group support. It's actually opening up in October. Yeah. And I also have a large Instagram account where I have a lot of resources. It's also talking that sleep on Instagram. I have lots of free guides and lots of resources that you can get advantage of.
Awesome.
So coming up with a toddler course soon. I've been hearing a lot of people are requesting, can you tell us about toddlers?
Yes.
And I absolutely love toddlers and I'm really excited to talk about them. I'm currently on mat leave with my 4-month-old, but I'm hoping to get something going in the fall or in the winter uh, for toddler parents.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, something to look forward to.
Yes.
Great. Well, so we'll link. So you'll give us the blog.
I'll give you the blog on sleepy cues and wake windows, and I'll give you my contact information to my website and social media. I'm not currently offering one-to-one support, but likely after maternity leave, I'll be offering one-to-one support, either myself directly or with my team member who also happens to be on mat leave right now, which is why we don't have one-to-one right now in this moment.
Awesome. We'll link those all in the show notes below. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Yeah, have a nice day.
You too.
Thanks for listening. Make sure to check out our website at www.shefoundhealth.ca and to sign up for our community for weekly bump blasts. Make sure to check us out on Instagram or Facebook at she.found.motherhood and head on over to your favorite podcast app and leave a review and a 5-star rating. If you enjoyed this podcast, take a pic of yourself listening to it and share it on social. Make sure to tag us on it so we know to keep making them.